You're listening to Community Voice PHL, an award-winning talk show that informs, engages, and inspires. Hey, this is Jeff Jones, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Community Voice PHL Talk Show. Community Voice is a talk show that informs, engages, and inspires. We're an award-winning talk show that features the dynamic interviews of individuals who are working to make a difference in their community. We'll have inspiring interviews with amazing people who are just doing great things and that we want to share with you on the listening audience. So thanks again for tuning in to Community Voice PHL, a show that informs, engages, and inspires. We're on WPPMLP Philadelphia, Apple Podcasts, and our YouTube channel. So thanks for tuning in and being part of the show. So if you're first time viewing, first time listening, thanks, and we appreciate that. If you want to follow us, we normally are on Instagram. That's our main platform. And I know it's kind of like a thing I've been saying for quite some time. People are going to be saying, hey, Jeff, maybe you should get on another platform. But right now, we're rocking it out on Instagram. We are working to get another platform, but that's where we're at on Instagram. It's at Community Voice PHL. You can follow us there. You catch up with us because we want to make sure that we're getting our information out there. We want to make sure that anyone who's following us and supporting us know where to find us at. And that's why we always promote that we're mostly on Instagram and not too many other places you might be searching social media and don't see us on those other platforms because we're just on Instagram. And if you also want to follow us, we have an Apple Podcast. Please subscribe to our Apple Podcast, Community Voice PHL Talk Show, and our YouTube channel, Community Voice PHL Talk Show. Please subscribe to both of those platforms so that we can continually build our listening and viewing audiences in those two capacities. So we greatly appreciate that. And also, if you have any comments about this episode or any other episode that's being streamed or any episode that you may have checked out, you can send us an email to Community Voice PHL Talk Show. And when you send us that email, we'll be sure to respond. We're going to always have episodes and times we respond to some of the emails that we normally receive. So be sure to send us an email with any feedback to communityvoicephl@gmail.com, and we'll be able to get back at you with that. And we know always that you're always going to be listening and tuning in. So again, when you do respond, do send us an email. Just let us know what episodes you checked out so we can make sure that we're featuring the right content, the right information that really inspires and informs you. There's a lot of things that's going to be happening in the summer because as we know, the summertime roll around, it's going to be events coming off. There's, grass and dash. That season's coming up, so all the grass is going to be soon, graduating from various different levels of school. And one of the things that's always kind of fun for me is that when I see, the young kids graduating, they have like kindergarten graduate. That is just like the best. I mean, of course, we have those adults who are getting their doctorates and their masters and bachelors, and that's cool. That's a great accomplishment, right? Not taking anything away from them, but just the joy of seeing the little ones in their cap and gown, man. That is just like, yes, celebrate the little babies. They just maybe going from the third to the fourth grade or whatever the transition is, but they just look so like professional. And talk about professional, I got my colleague on the air, Nick Best. What's up, Nick? How's it going, my brother?
Amazing, my brother. How are you?
Man, I'm living a dream. Yeah, so I was just talking about, the grass and dash season that we got coming up, and I was just obviously, as you heard, talking about, the little ones when they graduate. That's just like the coolest. What's your thoughts on that, man?
Did you cry your first graduation when your kids graduated?
That's a great question, but no, I did not because that's all the money I paid. So all the money I paid, I was like, no, there'll be no tears.
No happy tears?
No happy tears. Nah. It was proud. I was definitely proud. I might have been choked up, but I know I didn't cry. So it's not for any other reason because it just didn't hit me at like that type of an emotion.
Yeah.
I came close to tears with my daughter who graduated from college first. When she graduated from college, that was kind of like almost a teary moment because that was like a transition from seeing her or remembering her when she was the girl going in, and now this woman coming out. It's like, dang, she's about to launch off and do her thing.
Yeah.
The first graduation in high school and middle school, nah, man. There's too much money I paid. I was like, you better.
That's what you're supposed to do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. You cashed all them checks and all that. So yeah, you better. Yeah, yeah. So
What did she go for?
say it again.
What did she go for?
College?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's MFA, not MFA, FA, Fine Arts.
Fine art. Okay, you speaking my language now.
Yeah. She went to Sarah Lawrence College. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that college,
I'm
but
not. No.
yeah, it's one of the, not like I'm bragging on the air, but it's one of the most prestigious fine arts colleges in the country. So,
Hey, talk that talk. Ain't
yeah,
nothing wrong with that.
I don't want people in the air be thinking that we trying to create some elitist type of show.
Is that the narrative?
Say it again.
Is that the narrative?
Of Sarah Lawrence?
No. Of the show. You said
No,
people
I
may
don't
be
want.
thinking.
No, I don't want that to be the narrative. Not at all.
Uh,
Humble and kind of embracing of all folk in that regard. I don't want to be thinking we like I said, elitist and talking about she went to Sarah Lawrence. Oh my God.
yeah, my daughter's from Harvard University.
Exactly that part. that part. I don't want that coming in. Then we lose some listeners. We don't want that. But yeah, she went to Sarah Lawrence College. Got a bachelor's at fine arts, and she's pursuing that right now, trying to find her niche in the creative field, whether it's fashion design, whether it's some type of creative marketing. So she's still in that space of trying to find her niche. But yeah, that's what she went to. And at that graduation, like I said, it was emotional for me in that aspect. But no tears just yet. I think I'm saving that for the wedding and the grandchildren.
Hey.
Those are the tears that'll probably come then, my man. So yeah. So other than that, man, what's been happening in your world, man? It's been a week. Anything?
Yes. It's been a lot of rest, which I'm actually proud to admit, because at one point in my life, I was a little embarrassed of admitting that. Like, the ego sets in, it's like, oh man, I didn't really do a lot today, but your body might need rest. And it's like, that guilt sets in of you not really, I don't want to say doing what you supposed to do, because what you're supposed to do might be rest, but the thing that you thought that you needed to do may not have been a priority at the time.
Right. So you got a lot of rest, you're saying?
Exactly.
That's what's up.
I literally just woke up from a nap an hour ago.
So breaking news, he just made it in time for the show. That's what's up. But listen though, man, that self-care, that rest, like you said, it is important. We laugh and we joke about it, but sometimes in our society, if we don't take those moments to refresh ourselves, then we get to that point where we get be stressful. We don't want that. But we also, as you know, Nick, we got to combat that and fight against the laziness portion too, right? So
yeah, that's a different world right there.
Yeah, it's a different world. Some folk will listen to us and be like, well, Jeff and Nick said get some rest, so I'm not here rest. I'm like, nah, we said self-care.
Yeah, them dishes been in the sink for a week. That's just laziness. Get that up.
That's just laziness. We're not talking about that. So this episode, Nick, we just gonna be rocking out, and a lot of things, like I mentioned, is gonna be happening soon with the grads and dads coming up in June. We salute the moms that for this month of May. But grads and dads are coming up soon. But one of the things that I did want to touch on and get your viewpoint on, because it struck a lot of people in the city in a heartfelt way. LGP Qua. I don't know if you heard about the young man. Yeah, he's very, very well-known influencer. He's I'm gonna say young. He's 30 years old, but I guess that's young to me, right? But so a young man who was really a great influencer, and he embraced social media with his creative art. He's a rap artist, but he would creatively speak about nonviolence and creative speak about empowering youth and all the great things, right? He I don't know how many followers he had actually, but he had a massive following of people that was just really embracing him for his, creative art, his rap, his positive message, going to schools and encouraging the young students to stay on the right path. Because he had some, challenges with the law in his early life. And, he came out, and now he was being real positive. So it was just a positive light in the community. LGP Qua was his name. Quadir Johnson is his birth name, and he was shot on Mother's Day, killed on Mother's Day.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and it really left a sad tone in the city, because it's like whenever we have someone who's a beacon of hope, a light, shining and doing some great work, we're not trying to deify the brother, because, we all have those spaces where we could do better. But I'm not trying to deify it, but I am trying to say that he was doing the positive thing.
Mm.
No one that I know of, and I know quite a few people who know him, and I know quite a few people who spoke to him, said anything bad about him. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, you know, you say, oh yeah, he doing this, but he doing this too. He wasn't. He was just on a positive level, right? So he just recently got killed, and I share that because it left such a cloud over the city, over the youth, because his moniker was that he was a voice of the youth, because that's what he was, you know, spitting positive lyrics and, you know, rubbing elbows with the who's who in the rap music and the rap game. So it wasn't like he was just purely local, right? And him being killed had everybody thinking like, dang, he was, you know, one of the good ones, if you will. So it really speaks to like, what happens in situations like that? How does a city now heal from something like that? When someone who's really a bright star is taken away, you know, and that's where it's at now. A lot of local elected officials, you know, who gave him commendations and gave him certificates of appreciation. They're really shook by this, and I don't know if the mayor has released a statement, but she knows of the young man's work. So, and I say that in light of sometimes we look at things like that and we begin to realize that there's a need to not just take care of the youth, but take care of each other. You know, be mindful how we govern each other. So I'll pause there and let you chime in real quick, man.
Yeah, when you were saying the story, I'm thinking of Nip and how that situation went down.
It's
And
similar. It's
yeah,
similar. Yeah,
yeah,
it's similar.
seriously.
Yeah,
It's just, I think the best way that we can really honor those type of people is to
yeah.
continue the work that they left behind, you know,
Mhm.
and really, you know, he was a beacon of light. So how do we be that beacon of light for ourselves in the community and, you know, really transferring that energy and keeping that alive?
Yeah, and that's the thing though, right? Keeping that alive is the main thing without that frustration.
Hmm.
Because I had a chance to talk with a couple of youth this afternoon, and I asked them their opinion about it, and it got to be real interesting. And you know, I expression say, "You listen but don't judge," but it got to be real interesting because they were like, you know, why would he go in these places, and why would he do? And you know, quasi victim blaming almost. But I'm like, yo, he's going in places where he's going in darkness where light needs to be,
Yeah,
right?
and that's important.
So you know, and we can't. I would never tell someone, hey, you know, now that you made it, don't come back and shine some light. I would never say that. So it's not so much that you know you want to say, well, you shouldn't have been in these places because in essence, I was telling the young people, there's no such thing as really as a bad place, you know, because you know we can label it that, you know, things may happen in that area, but is it a bad place or is it a place that just needs resources and opportunities and services, right? But they were saying, you know, he shouldn't have been there, he shouldn't have been doing this, and I'm like, and I wasn't trying to correct them, so I let them, you know, share from their voice and their space. But in
Hmm.
my mind, I'm thinking, gosh, it's like, is that really thinking? Like, you know, we can't, once we make it, we got to be in a certain place. We can't give back and shed some light in places that, you know, need to have that light shined on them. And it's a challenge, man, because that's sometimes what happens. Is once we make it, we out the
Yeah.
hood, never coming back. And, you know, when we do come back, it's at a distance. But you got guys like you say, like Nip and like LGP Qua, who's just, you know, doing the good, and they're not going to leave per se, no matter how much they amass, and they still become targets. It's tough, man. They still become targets. So
It sounds like it's a real slippery slope with that because I think it comes with a level of discernment. Like, you know,
mhm.
some places, like, all right, I kind of got to keep my head on a swivel while I'm out here.
Right, right.
But like you said, it's still work to be done. You don't just have to leave it behind completely.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and
that's
I
a
get
good
that.
point.
Yeah, yeah, you make a great point. That's what I was alluding to as well. Is that, you know, not to be naive, you
Yeah.
gotta be discerning, right? You know, but at the same time, I don't know the whole situation, right? So it may come something may come out of this whole case and find out that whatever. But I'm just speaking from what I know at the moment and
Hmm.
from what I know of the young man, from what I've read and what I've been told. I don't perceive he was putting himself in situations where he had to so much put his head on a swivel
Hmm.
where you know, like, well, maybe you might would have thought that one over a little bit. I don't think he was in one of those situations. I was just think he was in a situation where doing a good, out and about, someone found an opportunity to it was a robbery attempt. Someone found an opportunity to try and rob him for maybe his jewelry or his money or whatever they were trying to take. But yeah, I agree with you, Nick. There does have to be that discernment balance because people will take opportunity when we don't, make ourselves aware of what our surroundings in that space. But that's it, and it kind of is on the edge of the not the summertime is yet a month away, but it's on the edge of the cusp of the summer. When things are going to be taking place, when he was going to be probably prominently doing some things, and now that's lost. So we take that momentum into the summer, like you were saying. How do we heal? How do we build? And how do we take care of ourselves in that space? Because it's a lot of our young folk, and again, I don't know how many followers you have, but a lot of our young folk are really grieving that they're hurt. And I'm just encouraging us to speak to it in the space of having these open conversations so that hurt doesn't turn to anger, and that anger doesn't turn to some other unproductive behavior, because sometimes that happens in situations like this. I've even heard someone on social media say something crazy, which I am not going to repeat on the air, but it was just like, really? And we shouldn't be thinking in terms of anything crazy. We should be more in the line of, like you say, being more positive and helping the community out. So, yeah, man, it's tough out here, man. It's tough.
Yeah, so just really owning in on that point, just picking up where he left off. That's really important. So I want to check out what he was doing for myself and get educated with that, and see what I can do. He might motivate me in a way where I'm like, oh, I didn't even think of that. I can help the youth in that way too. So really passing that on and continuing that legacy is important.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because he did, even as a young person, impact me, because I like hip hop, I like rap, I like creative art in that space. So when I first started following him on social media, I liked his videos, his montage of videos. It was short, 1 minute videos or so at that time. It's a little bit more you can do on Instagram now, but at that time, about 1 minute, he's spit some creative lyrics, being positive, using old school track beats. And I was like, this young boy got skills, And as things would come up on your timeline, I said, well, okay, he's really doing the thing. And then again, things continue to come up from time to time. I see his elbow. I was like, gosh, this young guy is really, what I mean? You're seeing his star shine. I'm like, wow, really cool for the brother. So in that sense, yeah, he inspired me. I was like, yeah, well, I never got a chance to meet him, but it was always a thing like, wow, if I did, as a matter of fact, truth be told, and I'm not just saying this because he's passing the situation, I did on his Instagram, send him a deal and say, hey, you want to be on Community Voice? And he responded, but schedules never got to the point where we could have him on the show. And then, he kind of, if you will, took off at the start. But I did reach out to him because I was like, yo, he's the voice of the youth.
Yeah.
Why not have him on? But it never came to be. And I say that to say, yeah, I think if you check out his Instagram feed, if they're still keeping it live, you might be inspired as well, because you're in the creative space as well. And, you might be like, like you're saying, what can I do to help the youth to inspire them and continue the legacy of his work? And I just think he's a unique individual in the rap space where continuing his work, in my opinion, may not mean someone trying to rap like him. Someone trying to drop videos like him.
Thank you for saying that. Yes.
Yeah, because some people be like, now I'm the next one. Find your lane in honor of Quadir, or LGP Qua, as they would call him on stage, and build that up. But yeah, not to leave a somber note on the show, but I just did want to at least stress that, because it left such an impact in the city, and I didn't want those in the city to think that Community Voice does not have our thumb on the pulse of what's feeling and what's been happening in the city, and what we're concerned about, because we are concerned about that. We're concerned about gun violence for sure. We're concerned about the safety of not just anyone who's a celebrity, but safety of our young people, our seniors, and our residents as a whole. Because this thing that happened to LGP Qua should not happen to anybody. You should be able to, no matter, I don't even care if, you got, gold on from head to toe like Mr. T. You should not be a target of someone else's, opportunistic, thrive to try and rob you. Now, as you mentioned, Nick, you should have discernment, but yet and still, even with discernment, this just shouldn't happen, man. So just wanted to put that out there, man, because we do know what's happening. When we say, if it's happening in your community, we need to hear your voice. We're not just saying it because we want to just say it and be popular. We're saying it because we want to make sure we're speaking to the voice of the community, voice of the people that's out there. So heartfelt prayers and well wishes and all that go up to Cordelia Johnson's family. And as you mentioned, Nick, let's see what we can do as community voice to tap in individually, collectively to support the continuation of his legacy and build on his work because much too soon, as they would say, much too soon. So, yeah. So what do you got on your side of the world, Nick?
I want to touch on something real quick that you said because I think that's important too.
Mm-hmm.
About how somebody younger than you inspired you.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the OGs sometimes don't really want to hear the voice of the youth because you already lived a certain portion of your life where you think you know this and that, but when you get that fresh new perspective, I think that's such a beautiful thing to be able to learn from somebody who's from a different generation than you are, and not just, well, back in my time we used to walk 5 miles to school.
Yeah. And so and that's true though, right? Because when you do get, because there's wisdom that come with age, right? And when they talk about that wisdom that come with age, that also has to be that wisdom to know that you can learn from somebody younger too. So it's not just wisdom that come from age that you pass down; it's wisdom that come from age that you can still learn. And when I was talking to the youth today, one of the young guys said something I thought was really kind of profound. He was like, when y'all talking, talking not just to me, but the older guys that were in that session, he said, when y'all talking to us like y'all know everything. But y'all got to realize y'all still growing too. You have not always been the age that you're at, and you won't be the age that you will be next year either till you get there. I was like, deep.
Yeah.
So we all still growing and learning. I was like, true indeed.
And that's on a daily. It's not even a yearly basis. Like, I'm not the same person I was yesterday.
Right.
I have a completely new mindset that I do today.
Yeah, and that's how we should embrace it. So we shouldn't look at it as though, just because I'm older than you, Nick, it's not like I can't learn from you. And just because, you see me as being someone old, I don't understand your way. We should look at it like intergenerationally, what can we learn from each other? And I'm always inspired by your energy, truth be told, right? So it's just like, hey, that's my dude, Nick. Now I get a little bit more energy. You know what I mean? So it's just like Nick's in the room. Now we can do our thing. So I'm inspired by that. So it doesn't take, a lot if you really understand how you want to continue to grow and elevate to be able to inspire by anyone, young or old, And there's this thought that a mentor of mine told me a long time ago. A mentor of mine told me you should have 3 sets of mentors in your life, right? A mentor who's older than you, who you can learn from, a mentor who's your peer, who you can, kind of share ideas with, and a mentor that's younger than you, who can teach you the new ways.
So I like that.
Yeah, you should have 3 levels of mentors in your life, and I'm always open to having multiple levels of mentors in all those spaces because I know for a fact, and I'll let you jump in after this. I know that there's so many slang terms out there. I'm like, I don't know what that means. Because here's a funny truth, right? A friend of mine, he might even be listening. He sent me a text. I don't know if you would know this term, but he was like, "Yeah, man, we outside," and I'm like,
where?
And I'm like, nah, I didn't know. He's like, nah, man, that's a term. I was like, oh, okay.
What you thought he was outside your door?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean.
Like, hold on, you ain't telling me you was coming. You just pull up on me?
Right, that part. So you've heard that term before, though, Nick?
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, so see, I did. So like you said, we outside. I'm like, nah, what you So I say that to say, that's why I like to be with the young folk. Not like I'm trying to be young, because my age is my age, and I'm a rock out with it because I'm proud. But I want to be able to be connected with the young folk when they say stuff like that. I'm not so disconnected that I can't learn from the young folk and be able to relate to them. So now I know what it means.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm at that stage now. I think I want to say they saying 30s is now Unk stage.
Is it really?
Maybe if I'm reciting that correctly, but a lot of the younger generation, I have no idea what they're saying at all. I have no idea what they're talking about. The slang is just so different than when I grew up. I'm like, dang, I'm at that age already when I gotta ask y'all what that mean. And they'll be talking to me, and I'm like, I'm trying to put 2 and 2 together to really understand what's being said. I'm like, okay, that's what that means. All right.
You go for context clues now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm playing Blues Clues with the conversation, trying to really, what are you saying, young man?
I'm telling you, Nick, that's how it was today with a couple of things that they said, but for the fact that you know how we're smart and we can kind of catch on. But other than that, I'm like, okay, you say they blacken. What do you mean they blacken you? Oh,
You
okay,
play?
I get you. You heard that expression before?
I have not.
Oh, yeah, they was yeah, you blacking me, man. Why you blacking me? I'm like, you black,
That's Philly slang?
huh?
That's Philly? That's Philly slang?
I don't know. These kids they were part of the juvenile justice system, so they come from all parts of the
Okay.
tri-state area. So it's not specifically just Philly, but some of them were from Philly, some of them from Chester, some of them from Delaware County. So, but they were interchangeably using the slang like they knew. Like,
Yeah. I
I was
think the
like,
cool part about slang is that it's a coded language. It
no
often
doubt,
gets a bad rap, but
no doubt. Yeah.
sometimes I feel like it's cool to really talk in a way that only you and your people can connect with.
Oh yeah, no doubt, and I totally agree, and I 100% love it. Just like you said, because it becomes our language, and it epitomizes either the moment or the feeling for that generation. Because there's some
Mhm.
slang like of course I'm a lot older than you, right, Nick? But back when I was growing up, it was terms like cat and cool, but that meant something to us
Yeah.
back then, or to the older people, even older than me, when they was cat and cool. Now it's dog, hot, you know.
Ah, it went from cat to dog.
Yeah, it went from cat to dog, the cool cat. Now it's hot. You're my dog. You know what I mean? So, and I just say that because that's like the iteration of what you're talking about. It becomes a generational thing, and it becomes cool as you speak that language.
Mhm.
And I enjoy hearing it because, like I said, it's just me watching the youth develop their own voice in that space. You know what I mean? Because
Good point.
they're going to get older one day, and saying, "Yeah, you blackening me," and their kids can be looking at them like, "Dad, we won't say that no more." Well, you corny now, Dad. You know what I mean? So it just becomes interesting how that grows. But yeah, you are in that unk stage now.
Listen,
Listen, I remember the first time it was the expression OG, right? And I'm sure you heard the expression OG.
absolutely.
I was 35 years old. I was out there playing basketball, still feeling young. You know what I mean? I ain't had no gray or nothing, just feeling young, still hooping, still getting buckets and all that stuff. Guy like, all right, OG, you getting it in, OG? I'm like, OG, I'm 35. I'm 35. And I didn't say it out loud, but in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm 35. How can I get
Yeah,
OG? And in my mind, I'm thinking OGs in their 40s and 45s because
that's what I thought. Yeah.
yeah, I'm 40, I'm 35. But he hit me with the OG. So obviously, OG starts at 35. So you coming close on the OG status.
Oh boy. So now let me ask you: do you get offended by that, or is it a form of respect and endearment for you?
Yeah, so that's a great question. For me, when the guy first said I was, OG back playing on the hoops, it did kind of like, kind of rub me a certain way. But
Yeah.
as I began to educate myself on what it really means to be an OG, right, or old head, or whatever the expression would be indicating you're old, when I looked at it, I was like, it means that now I have wisdom. It means
Mm,
that some ways there's respect there, and it means that some way I can be influential. So yeah, I never took it as like, what you talking about, man? Because look, I'm 59, about to be 60. I'm not trying to be 17, trying to be 20, and nothing like that. Nah, I'm an old head. I'm an OG. I'm all of that. So it doesn't become offensive to me. To be honest, that's a great question, Nick. But I don't ever think I took offense to it.
that's what's up.
Only if someone said it in the way they're trying to be,
Yeah, you know the
silly
difference.
about it. Yeah, I know the difference. But other than that, if it just came to like if you said, "All right, OG, go ahead," I'm like, "All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead with it." I'm gonna go ahead. So yeah, I never took offense to that. But look, man, we about to wrap up on the show, man, because a half an hour ago, man, we never have enough time to really get into what we need to get into. But as always, I like when you give some closing thoughts before we wrap up the show.
Ooh, closing thoughts for today. Yeah, just going back to my point earlier about not feeling guilty about when you need rest and of course do your priorities and what you got to do, but really take some time for yourself so you can be more effective at what you need to do.
Mm-hmm. And that's what's up. So whenever we have those moments when we're contemplating thoughts such as, the loss that we just mentioned earlier, or the intergenerational mentorship, take time to rest and reflect and become your best self. Because when you become your best self, it helps the community that you're in to become better as well. So That's all the time we have for this episode of Community Voice. And if you're a first-time listener, please subscribe to our Apple podcast, which is Community Voice PHL Talk Show, and our YouTube channel, Community Voice PHL Talk Show. If you have any comments about this episode, how you get involved with the work I'm doing or Nick doing or we're doing at Community Voice, please send us an email to communityvoicephl@gmail.com. That's the email, communityvoicephl@gmail.com. And remember, if it's happening in your community, we need to hear your voice. Peace, and we are out.
Peace.